guys, I'm bringing you today a video slideshow of my latest project. Sorry I wasn't actually to get footage over this long process. It's a furniture mashup of sorts. I found this old cabinet that a neighbor didn't want anymore, and it was just sitting in my workshop for a few months. I wasn't sure what to do with it. Do I refinish it? Do I just repaint it? Could I build a better cabinet with it? Turns out, I had refinished an old desk for my wife, and the one it replaced was also sitting in the shop I had planned to use for scraps. Both were sitting next to each other, and it struck me. I could use the old cabinet as the top, and for its base, I could use both sides of the old desk. After doing some measurements, I was shocked to realize that if I cut the desk in half and then removed each of the sections where the doors were, they would fit nicely as a base. So I began dismantling the old cabinet, and I removed the hardware and the panels to reveal a solid, sturdy structure. The drawer slide, however, it was very old, and I was going to have to replace it. As I dismantled the base of this old cabinet, I noticed that the entire bottom section could come off as one piece. So I set it aside for later because I was going to reuse the legs. One of the biggest challenges was what to do with that middle section, since both of the sides, when spread out evenly with the top, left about a 7-inch gap. I had to make the middle look like it was one piece, so I used a part of the desk which I had cut off earlier to match with the bevel of the two side pieces. So I cut a piece down to fit that area. To further strengthen the structure of these side pieces, I placed a 1/2-inch plywood center and secured it to feed inside. Then I cut a 1/4-inch panel to place in the center to bring it flush with the openings of where the doors closed, and I glued that into place. I was able to get some leftover cut bevel pieces, and I used them as accents on the top and bottom so it would give it that look and feel that it was meant to be there. After that, I turned my attention to the drawer. So the next engineering challenge began. There was enough height that it could lay on the bottom. I just had to cut a notch into the back to allow for the slide to clear. Luckily, there was even an area where I could put a screw in to help grip the back of the drawer. The problem, how do I attach the front of the slide to the drawer base? Since the bottom of the drawer was only a 1/4 inch thick, any screw that I put in would pop right out, and that's not good. So the solution, I figured that the drawer would not be getting the normal abuse a drawer goes through its lifetime. So I used this wonderful product called Gorilla Glue. Basically, it's crazy glue, but it's known for great adhesion for multi-type surfaces like plastic to wood or paper to metal or wood to metal in this case. And it worked like a charm. The thing ain't going anywhere. After checking the fit and making sure that I had a good solid location to the base of the cabinet, I turned the attention to the last puzzle of this build, which was the bottom. When I originally dismantled the desk, I noticed that the legs were glued into the bottom, and then molding was placed and built up around each leg. This left a mess after I took apart the legs, and I had to scrape off the glue and paint the bottom. It still really wasn't flat. So what I did is I took the overall measurements, cut a plywood piece down to bring it as a flat base, and it actually gave some structural strength to it since I got the top, the sides, the back, and now the bottom. That gave me a good base for the legs. So I located a good section for where the legs were to go, and I attached them using 4 socket set screws and 4 plane hanger bolts. The plane hanger bolts literally screw into the socket set screws. So in order to get that all together, I had to drill 1/2-inch holes in the base to screw in the socket set screws. The plane hanger bolts, I had to use 2 hex bolts sandwiching a washer in order to get a grip and not destroy the threads when I threaded them into each leg. After that, the legs were done. I did a test fit. It worked out perfectly. Unscrewed them. I would screw them in later after the paint. So at this point, it was time for the painting part, which took the majority of a weekend to do. I wanted that country feel and that whitewash finish. I wanted it to look like a piece of furniture that was very old and painted over and over again. Since the two pieces were both finished differently, the trick was I had to lay down a base of flat black matte spray paint. I chose spray paint. It generally worked for other projects. Looking back, I probably should have done it right and made sure both pieces were sanded down and went over it with a black latex paint. But all worked out okay in the end. After I had painted that matte black, I went in with a white latex semi-gloss. I had to go over the white a few times each time, making sure that there was enough texture in there. I used 6-inch fine-haired flat brush over everything, and the streaks that it makes come out okay. After the white had dried, after a few layers, I used 150 grit sandpaper and went over every inch of that cabinet. I had to do it by hand because a power tool would just be too even and would be too harsh in places. The corners were much easier to do by hand. The molding, it's easier to get in there, and 150 seemed to be about the right size grit paper to use. As you can see at the end, the result came out just as I had wanted it. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.